This is Donovan. He is just about 20 years old, a 15 hand gelding. He is actually the one that I auctioned, kicked Tawny, and he's doing really well. So we're gonna show you kind of the things that we've brought him through. He's calmed down a lot since he first came. So it's nice to see that he is coming around and being happy and wanting to work and have a job. When he first came out of quarantine and we were working with him, you couldn't even brush down his legs, pick up his hind feet without him wanting to kick you. So it's nice that he's really progressed with that. Oh boy. Since he came, we've pulled the shoes that he had on. So now he's barefoot and he's pretty sound-footed. Oh boy. If you hear a lot of noise in the background with him today, our vet barn is being built, but I don't mind because that gives him something to kind of have in the background, a new noise. Good boy. So when we were first working on his feet, when you would feel down his leg, he'd kick out. But as you can see now, he doesn't do that. His left side was a lot worse right when it came to having to feel around him and down his legs. Good boy. We move over. Oh, good boy. What a good boy. Show you guys some of the stuff I've done in the round pen with him. And then I'll saddle him and show you some of the stuff I've done riding. That's just in the ring, kind of round pen work, rather than showing you everything he's done outside. Because we've brought him down to the river, we've taken him down the road, on the trail, we've done all of that with him too. So when I started working with him, I started with the round pen stuff, so it's just driving him forward at the hip, just like this. And then I have a couple turns I do. One of them's an outside turn, I step out in front, and he changes to the outside. A lot of people don't like to do an outside turn because it's thinking of their horses turning their butt away from them, but I like doing it because to me it's yielding their shoulder away rather than moving their butt towards me. I just ask for a couple of those turns. And he's very soft with it. I don't have to do too much, I just have to kind of step out where I need to be. What a good boy. Good boy. I use a kissy voice for the join up rather than to drive him forward. That kissy voice is kind of like, hey, give me your attention rather than moving forward. So I'm just gonna give him a little kissy voice. Good boy. Just to say, hey, I'm ready for you to give me your attention. And there's a lot going on, so it's okay if he's nervous. He's allowed to be nervous. But as long as he pays attention to me, that's the only thing. Ooh. Then I'll have him follow me around with nothing on. I just want to make sure his focus is where I want it to be. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. So that kind of turn like this is the same thing I did on the rail, except I'm right next to him instead, where I'm just asking him to move his shoulder away from me. It's the same thing as a turn on the haunches or anything similar to that that you would do riding, or your pivot when you're in showmanship, anything like that. Good boy. So I'll do the same thing and I'll saddle him up, just like I would when I was first starting to work with him. So I don't necessarily have to do any more round penning with him when I first start with him, but I'll show you kind of guys what I went through with him before he kind of showed that he was ready to just get on and ride. So I just put the saddle pad on from both sides, just to make sure on both sides he accepts it, because their brain doesn't connect very well in the middle. Good boy. Put it on from both sides. Good boy. And I'll ask him to walk around with me with the saddle on. So if at any point he wanted to kind of go off, I would just pull the saddle off as he's going off and make him go back to work in the round pen. So a lot of horses don't always stand still when you saddle them or brush them or anything. So this is one of the things that I like to do, is just get them saddled, brushing, doing their feet with nothing on them. They choose to stand rather than forcing them to stand. Good boy. And this whole time he's keeping his focus on me, which is really nice. So he lost his focus, he kind of went off, so I'm just gonna put him back to work. Go back to doing some of those turns. So I'm associating the work with the wrong answer that he decided to give. Good boy. Good boy. And with him, I just use a full cheek snaffle because it has the same effect as a halter would. If you think of a halter on their face right here, pushing this way as you're pulling this rein, and pushing this way as you're pulling that rein, the full cheek does the same effect. It pushes right here as you're asking to steer that way, pushes right here as you're asking to steer this way. Boy. So being a Tennessee Walker and what we think was a big lick horse, a lot of them tend to be nervous and spooky, and they don't stand to mount very much. So one of the things we worked on with him was getting him to stand when I mount. So working on getting him to mount, instead of pulling his head to the side, when you pull his head to the side, it's gonna disengage his hindquarters and it's actually gonna push it that way. So instead, I'm gonna hold both my reins at the same length. So if he goes to walk forward, I can easily put a little bit pressure to ask him to stop. And then if he does that, I'll associate a backup with it, because backing up is a lot more work than going forward. Do the same thing. Good boy. Wait. Wait for him to settle, and then I'll get off and I'll do the same thing. Wait. Good boy. So a horse, it can take 200 times for them to begin to learn something, and 2,000 times before they really start to know it. So the more you can do something with the same repetition, the better it is for them. Here we go. So it's nice that after 3 or 4 times, he actually finally stood and didn't dance afterwards. Good boy. And he's one that I can kind of ride on a looser rein, which isn't something you typically see with many Tennessee Walkers. A lot of them are really go, 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 so you want to hold. But he is very happy with a loose rein. Even when you're riding down the road, I can put him on the buckle and he just walks along. But some of the things we've been doing in here is just kind of fine tuning, working on a little bit of bending. So I'm just gonna hold with my left rein. I'm gonna push with my left leg, and I'm just gonna ask for him to give me this eye and move a little bit laterally to the outside, where my outside rein is just gonna keep him at the same speed. Good boy. And he's not gonna be perfect at it yet, but he's beginning to learn it. So I'm just gonna hold, I'm gonna push. He gave a little bit of his eye and then he moved over laterally, so I'm gonna give him the release. Do the same thing. If he goes to speed up, I'm just gonna use this outside hand to hold him and give him a little bit of speed control. And then I'll do the same thing the other direction. And it's nice to do it in a round pen or somewhere where I'm on a circle, because he's constantly on a circle to be able to ask him to do it. So I'll kind of hold with my right hand, I'll push with my right leg. I'll wait till he gives me his eye. There we go. So it's more to start where his body is rather than where his head is. So as his body learns it, his head's gonna start to come down. He's gonna start giving a little bit more and being softer in the mouth. Good boy. And you'll see when he does give it right with his body, his back lifts up, his hind end comes a little bit deeper, and he might take a little bit quicker of a step, but that's just because he took that further step in his hind end, and you can see that he's giving it a little bit easier each time, and it takes less hold and less push to get the response with him. And it's just one of those fine-tuned things to work with him on, to get him to be a little bit softer and be able to deal with the pressure. Good boy. One of the things being a Tennessee Walker, a lot of them don't necessarily want to stop, they want to keep going. So with him, sit in your seat, a little bit of hand, and just say ho, and he's ready to stop. And it's really nice that he has those good breaks. Have to do a little bit, moving that shoulder over. If you think of a horse, they have their head, they have their neck, shoulder, body, and their hindquarters. And you can separate all of that into different things that you're gonna ask them. So I can ask him to move his shoulder, I can ask him to lift his barrel, I can ask for his hind end to come a little bit further underneath of him, and I can ask for a headset with his head. But I wanna get the body first before I go to the head for stuff. So I'll just ask a little bit more of that lateral. Good boy. You can see his head's kind of coming down. He'll do some lateral motion too. Good boy. And when I do that one, I'm just gonna hold with both hands and just push with this left leg. Good boy. Ooh. Oh, good boy. He's very happy to have a job. And he does gait, being the Tennessee Walker. Good boy. He does it pretty well. He's not one that's gonna take off. I can put my hand down, and if anything, he's gonna wanna stop rather than keep going, which is nice to see. Good boy. And then I can just sit, and he comes back to a walk. Good boy. Ooh. Good boy. Do a little bit. One of the other things we started doing is a little bit of a turn on the haunches with him. Good boy. Good boy. So my leg just comes a little bit forward to push him. Good boy. I can ask for a little side pass over. Good boy. Oh. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. So that is Donovan, and hopefully we can find someone to be a perfect match for him and continue his training and kind of give him a home where he can relax and have a nice person to bond with that's gonna love him for the rest of his life. Hopefully someone that watches this can find him and give him that home.